Anyway, listen, on that cost of living topic, of course, this is the interesting part about this. Labor now says it's going to crack down on supermarket price gouging if re-elected. Now, this is bizarre because only a week ago, the ACCC, when its final report came down, it said, hey, there's no real evidence of price gouging. But the Prime Minister has pledged today to set up a task force to study overseas laws and recommend a plan within 6 months. Plans to adopt the ACCC's recent inquiry findings, which, as I say, didn't confirm whether there's price gouging happening or not.
I got asked today by someone as well, how do you know what's price gouging? Price gouging is when supermarkets are taking the piss off Australian consumers. That's what it is. That's what price gouging is. Everyone out there knows, consumers know, we'll take action.
So can I just ask you, Parnell, is taking the piss also bracket creep? And the government taking off the average worker $3,500 off.
Well,
and in actual fact saying, don't look at me, look at the supermarkets because they're obviously the ones who are the big bad monsters. We're just the government taking your money and redistributing it.
I think that's a really great definition, Kel, and we could adopt that for the Ross, and that we can adopt that for the rest of the campaign, because that is precisely what is happening here. The prices are being pushed up by those things, and of course, it's always really, governments love saying that they're responsible for things, whereas in fact, it's the other way around. What they're really responsible for is getting out of the way as much as possible so that prices can normalise at a rate that people feel happy with them. Now, you know, I was unlucky enough to spend a little bit of time in East Germany before the wall came down, and I have seen what it looks like when the government orders the product and how much product is being on the supermarket shelves. And I can tell you what, there is very little of it, but it might all be at the right price.
I would much rather
be going. Oh my goodness! Much rather be going into a supermarket here where some things cost more and some things cost less, but essentially they are there because the market demands them, and as much of them as we demand is there.
So Hollie, the only thing about this is that. Now, I know that Adam Bandt says we forced the government into this position, but in actual fact, my belief is it's Peter Dutton, because Peter Dutton's the one who came out and said, we're going to bust up the supermarkets and we're potentially going to bust up the insurance companies. To me, that seems like totally and utterly unconservative, unliberal values in some ways. How do you actually equate that? Because the government is now following in. The New Zealand government, a conservative government, has gone the same way today, saying they'll bust up their supermarkets.
And we do fundamentally have a duopoly in this country.
No, we don't.
Well, we don't. We've got Costco and IGA and a couple of others.
No,
what about Aldi?
Aldi?
We have a great Australian company. We have in Australia. This is sit down, check out chicks. I mean, sorry, comrades. They have been sitting there serving you.
Are you finished? But at the end of the day, it's the size of our market. It's the how diverse we are around the country and spread out across the country, and the difficulty with any other player coming into the market isn't able to come up. It's about having a big stick as opposed to actually, you know, enacting or going in now.
Well, you don't have a big stick unless you're going to use it occasionally.
Well, absolutely. You should be prepared to lose a big stick. That's why you have it. But price gouging isn't defined. And by saying supermarkets are taking the piss, that is just irresponsible when you're talking about it from a policy framework. That's the guy at the barbecue having a beer and a DJ. That's not a guy who's looking how we're going to take this country forward.
Isn't that actually what some people sort of
But that's the thing, the guy at the barbecue with the beer is the voter that you're trying to get.
Can I just say, I'm old enough to remember when the problem was that supermarkets were undercutting the price of milk. Remember dollar
milk, and they had to get rid of it.
We demand higher
so
prices.
first of all, that's right.
Yeah, that's right. But they did. They had the $2 bread and the $1 milk, and that was all got rid of.
And that was
because of what was happening, if you think of paddock to plate and what the farm gate price is. But the reality is a lot of costs have gone up because transport's gone up. Energy costs have gone up. So to process food, it's gone up in costs. So whether it's gouging, which the ACCC has basically done a big review and said maybe not, it's actually a lot of the other external factors, like Jim Chalmers likes to talk about. It's never his fault.
Right.
It's always an external factor.
Absolutely right. It's always the economy that's doing most of the heavy lifting. The government takes credit for the good stuff and says it's all external factors.
It's everybody else's fault when it doesn't go well.
But leaving apart all that, I have been calling, so it's not Adam Bandt's idea, it's my idea.
Right.
I've been calling for a supermarkets prices and wages accord, Bob Hawke style, for years, and I've suggested that the government sit down with the supermarkets, with unions and say, right, and again, not necessarily because of price gouging, but because they were basically the only big business that actually did better out of the COVID lockdowns than it did in normal everyday life.
I think Harvey Norman did pretty well too, you know, but streaming services.
But those big retailers that were among those permitted to open, they made an absolute bomb during COVID. And given that this is an economic crisis...
It's irrelevant.
No, it's not, because the economic crisis we're going through right now is a direct result of suppressed demand through COVID, and it was only the supermarkets that were beneficiaries of that. So I think there is
Are we going through an economic crisis right now? We're not. We've got unemployment.
But it's going through a cost of living crisis.
An economic crisis is when you have unemployment at 8%.
Well, no, there are different types of economic crises, and I know you're a business guy. I'm not telling you how to suck eggs, but it is
You're stepping very close to the line there, Joe.
It is a very, very strange kind of economic crisis, but runaway inflation is absolutely a crisis.
You've got personal bankruptcies at all-time lows. You've got bad debts in banks at all-time lows.
So everything's great. Vote for the government.
No, I'll tell you the crisis that's going on at the moment, because the way normal people measure it is the way my wife and I measure it.
Yep.
The cost of an average bag of groceries. Yep. 12 months ago, it was $50. So you got 4 bags for the week, you paid $200. It's now $70 a bag. Now, that's how ordinary people understand an economic crisis. I go to the supermarket, I still get my regular 4 bags of groceries, but I have to pay more for it. That's the actual experience. Yeah. Now, how do you bring that price down? The price gouging thing is, I just think it's obviously not workable, because there's going to be very hard to get a legal definition of price gouging. And I don't think the people who draft legislation will accept taking the piss as an appropriate definition.
Well,